Olivia Engel is a native St. Louisan. She worked for 8 years in the restaurant business, and so she's a natural for the Green Dining Alliance, who works with restaurants. She was a creative writing major in college, which proves that humanities serve you well no matter where you go. So please welcome Olivia Engel.
Green dining in St. Louis. Typically my audience is restaurant owners or restaurant stakeholders, but tonight I have a different kind of presentation that's tailored a little more to diners and how we can all empower ourselves. What I want you to walk away with tonight is what's going on in the green dining scene in St. Louis, because there actually is a lot happening right now. And also, how can we as diners make a difference and be involved without actively owning a restaurant ourselves. So just a little background about what we do. Since we're working with restaurants and eating out, I'd like to ask a sort of public poll. Who eats out? Who eats out more than once a month? Right? Who eats out maybe twice a week?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, right? So what we're seeing here is something that has a huge environmental impact. There's a lot of resources that go into restaurants. If you think of all of the electricity and water and gas and food that goes into making dinner for your family, obviously put that into much larger proportions for a restaurant. So the Green Dining Alliance is a part of St. Louis Earth Day. We are a program of that nonprofit. And the idea kind of sprung out from St. Louis Earth Day's mission, which is to make Earth Day every day. You know, it shouldn't just be this one day of the year where everyone gets together and talks about how they love pandas and then they leave. It should be something that we incorporate holistically into our lives and that we incorporate every day. So what we do is we work with St. Louis restaurants. We try to facilitate a greening environment, helping them get the tools they need, access to education, access to different suppliers so that they can reduce their environmental impact. And as you see tonight, we also encourage diners to make those informed choices and put their money where their mouth is, literally. So, we are a third-party certifier. That means, we're not in the government, we're not doing anything that has to do with any set of regulations except for our own that we've set based on our knowledge of what it means to be green or to be sustainable. And when we think about our mission, again, we're engaging restaurants and industry professionals, but this last point, to empower diners and support local businesses, I think that's where all of us come in very powerfully. So right now, we're still a pretty young organization. We've just been laying the groundwork and building up the backbone of what we do. We've had some pilot programs and projects. These are our first members, our flagship members. You'll see the Schlafly Bottle Works on there, a fantastic facility. And basically, as with anything, we're always looking for more funders. Right now, our major funder is I'll go back to the logo for you down there, the Jefferson Solid Waste Management District. They're basically the ones who are making this possible. And so as we move forward, we're always looking for collaboration, for partnership, for people to come together and make literally an alliance and a network. So with that sense of always moving forward, I'm sure all of you are here because you've had your own experiences with learning about the environment and caring about the environment. Maybe you're here because you want to learn more. Maybe you've always been really strong environmentalists. We all have these different journeys. And my journey started when I was 16, and I started working at Red Robin in Fenton. And since then, I worked at 7 different restaurants, all in the St. Louis area. And every time I was there, as you'll see up at the top with this laser pointer, that's pretty handy, I always approached the owner of the restaurant. I always approached the manager. Hey, look at all that cardboard. Don't you want to recycle? And it just seemed obvious to me. That's an obvious choice. Because my parents are environmentalists, my whole family's involved, it just made sense. But what I found was that I was actually in the minority. And what I found was that I didn't know anything about actually running a business, let alone a restaurant. I didn't know how to communicate to these people. So over time, I had a lot of different conversations, and I've kind of broken it down into different types of restaurant owners, different types of business owners that I'm sure maybe you've encountered in your conversations. Type 1 is the ideal person that you want to work with if you're in the Green Dining Alliance, because this is someone who wants to make the change. But, I got this on my to-do list, I've got this staff who's a problem, I've got new inventory. The idea of bringing in a new infrastructure, starting to recycle, researching new products, finding out what's going on, this is so overwhelming. So they just feel like they can't. They want to, but they can't. It's on the back burner, literally, I guess. And then there's type 2, and this is the savvy business owner who's all about the bottom line. They want to show me that they know what they're talking about. Maybe they want to give the impression that they've done some research. They say, yes, oh no, I hear you on that, I hear you, but it's not feasible. It's not in the cards. And that's definitely a shutdown for a young, hopeful person who doesn't really know anything about business, as I said. Type 3 is the person who is going to take a lot more peer pressure from their own industry to change, because for whatever reason, and because of their culture, the way they grew up, their education, or maybe they just decided it's not for them, environmentalism is not an interest of theirs. They consider it a hobby, like painting or something, and it just doesn't have anything to do with business. All of these people can be found in type 4. And this is actually, all of these are paraphrased from actual conversations. I usually remember these pretty well because they would sting my heart. And this last one is one of the most recent. This is almost word for word. And I think I was polishing wine glasses behind the bar, and the owner of the restaurant was sitting nearby. I had a good relationship with this person, so I said, you know what? Why are we throwing this glass away? This is a renewable resource. We could be recycling it easy. He said, no way, it's not easy, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, they're recycling down the street. And he said, show me a way to recycle that's not going to cost me thousands of dollars. And I would do it in a heartbeat. And that stopped me in my tracks. And that's what led me to the GDA, ultimately. Because he showed me that there are two things that all of these owners have in common. Time and money hold them back. It's not necessarily that they don't care. Maybe they would do it if someone would show them how, if someone would give them the numbers and give them the resources and help them through the process, because they've got other things to do. And the other issue is that we're here in the Midwest. We have our own set of cultural background, we have our own educational background, and there is a general assumption in our society that I want to address. There exists an assumption that is a two-pronged affront, I believe, to our intelligence and our creativity. It says that the bottom line is always money, and that environmentalism and money cannot mix. I think this is a really dangerous assumption, because I think that it leads us to believe that we can't incorporate good practices because it's not a business thing. Oops. Business is only about money, and there is a single bottom line. And we know this isn't true. There are plenty of businesses around the country and in St. Louis who incorporate double and triple bottom lines, and they involve environmental stewardship and sustainability, and they are perfectly successful. But we still tend to operate with this assumption in mind. So I want to say we need to buck these assumptions, and we need to move forward in business, and we need to think about the environment in a business sense too. So here's a couple of myth busts and examples of innovation that I'll give you. These are three of our members: the Sassafras Cafe, which is inside the Botanical Gardens, as you may know; the Gelateria de Leone, small local cafe on South Grand; and Lulu's Local Eatery, which is a food truck, which is all the rage these days. Innovation in all of these places is something that you can see. When I talk about these big, successful businesses that have incorporated environmental sustainability and done very well, the Schlafly Bottle Works is a great example. That's a huge business. They've got a brewery, a bar, a restaurant, but they also have their own garden. They have recycling, they have composting, they harvest pounds and pounds of produce to feed their own people in that restaurant each day during the growing season. And even when the growing season is absent, they're still bringing in 40% local food products to serve at the restaurant. So it's obviously, they're wildly successful. I don't know if you've been there, but it's a fantastic place. The Sassafras Cafe is another example. Big scale, big budget, and they have done so many innovative things. You know, the Missouri Botanical Garden is, of course, a leader in the region and I think the nation. But the Sassafras Cafe also has incorporated, they're trying to get rid of as much petroleum use as they can. They actually use vegetable oil to power the gears in their elevators and machinery. It's doable. The Gelateria de Leone is much smaller. A lot of people think, and this goes with the myth busting, the little guys can't do it. But that's absolutely not true. A great example of innovation at the Gelateria is that they use the durable plastic containers with nice sealable lids that they get their dairy from. They get all of their dairy from Marcoux Jersey Creamery, which is a local place with great cheese. And they use that for all of their storage. The employees wash it by hand, make sure it looks great, put it through the dishwasher, label it, and they use that stuff until it wears out. So that's a fantastic way to reduce your costs and the amount of things that you're constantly bringing in to your place in order to keep it running. Lulu's Local Eatery is a food truck that has herbs and veggies growing on the roof. So these things are possible, no matter what your size, no matter what your structure. And I want to talk about this myth busting a little bit, specifically that guy, oh, it's going to cost me thousands of dollars. It's absolutely not. The next time that you approach a restaurant owner or a business owner and say, why aren't you recycling? And they say, oh, it's too expensive. Basically, when you set up recycling, you have two bins now. You have a landfill bin, you have a recycling bin, you have your hauler. Single stream recycling is easy. You don't have to peel off the labels or wash it out anymore. You can just put it all in there. It's going to get incinerated. It's fine. So the issue is this cost, the assumption that it's going to be more expensive, but really you're producing the same amount of waste. You're just diverting it, you're just sorting it. The price comes out in the wash. And this is something a lot of people don't know. Even if you get composting in on it too, and you have an additional thing that you're doing, you're probably only going to look at a 10 to 15% price increase. And since 75% of waste coming out of restaurants is recyclable or compostable, that's a huge thing to do. Another myth I want to bust is that to-go-ware must be made of styrofoam. I'll get to styrofoam in a minute. I have a little bit of a rant to go on that, but specifically here I'll say a lot of people think this is the cheapest option, it's what we have to do. There's no other way to do it. I can't pay 5 times more for something better. But that's absolutely not the case. It's not going to be 5 times more. And in fact, if you talk to your supplier and you say, listen, I don't want to use this stuff, it's toxic, can you give me something in my price range? They want to keep you. You're a customer. They'll find a way. Recently, we just had a very small bakery called Pie Oh My from Maplewood. She's just opened up. You should go there. Really, really cute spot. And she went through the GDA, the Green Dining Alliance audit and certification structure. She just had her audit yesterday. And she was perplexed because she had these wedge-shaped to-go containers for her pie slices, and they were number 6 plastic, which is polystyrene, which is styrofoam. And we said, oops, I'm going to have to hold this differently. She said, I absolutely can't afford the fancy paper stuff. I have to use number 6. And we said, well, that's a no-go for us. You can't have number 6 if you want to be a part of the GDA. So she talked to her sales rep, and within a day, they had a very reasonably priced alternative for her that was right in her price range, and it was pie-shaped too. So it's not impossible. If you encounter that assumption of impossibility, point them to good examples in the St. Louis area. And then these two right here. Big business is never green, or it's too expensive for the little guy. I gave you those 2 examples of the little guy with Gelateria and Lulu's. An example of big business would be Prairie Farms. A lot of people don't know that Prairie Farms is actually regionally sourced, so it's about as local as you can get from a big supplier within 250-mile radius of St. Louis. It's also a farmers collective. It's owned by over 700 farming families of varying sizes and shapes. Prairie Farms is an example of someone who has a triple bottom line. They have environmental sustainability and animal cruelty in their minds and in that bottom line for the whole business. And of course, they're extremely successful. You can find Prairie Farms at any grocery store, any supermarket or Quick Mart, and you can find it for a reasonable price. So challenge those assumptions when you meet them. This is an example of Lulu's. I just wanted to show you because it's so pretty. And good practices mean good business. This is attractive. People want to see these things. People want to see something new. People want to see something green. So that leads me to when you are speaking with your restaurant, your local restaurant, your favorite spot, and you're going to give them the pitch of why they should go green. And this is what we give when we, and I think it might be in the literature on the desk, I'm not sure. But this is basically how we break it down for the benefits, right? Why is this a business-minded thing to do? Well, first of all, a third-party certification is a way to show your customers, it's not just you saying, oh, we're a green spot, we have leaves on the walls, we love the planet. No, someone from the outside came in, they evaluated what you're doing, they evaluated all of your practices, and they gave you a rating. So it's a validation for your customers. Additionally, in terms of the GDA, we're local, we're on site, we're not going to be doing it remotely from the internet, we're going to go to your restaurant. So you have the marketing, the social network, the tools, resources, and the education from an alliance of people that have been built face to face. And that's something unique to St. Louis. There are other restaurant certifiers out on the coast or in the bigger cities, but all of them are done remotely and they're extremely expensive. That's a part of why our sponsorship is important, because we keep it very affordable. Our membership fee is nothing. So in that way, you are joining that alliance and that network, and it's going to be easier for you. It's going to be a richer, smoother experience. And then of course stewardship, and I'm sure all of you are already on board about this, but it's important. And restaurant owners know that stewardship of their establishment, oh, we have to have all the silverware polished, we've got to have the floor clean. Well, let's have healthy food. Let's have food that comes from a local farm so that your customers are walking away with good things inside of them. That's a part of having a good business too, and that's a part of stewardship. So how do we do it? If you're in a situation where you're talking to someone and they say, well, what exactly is going on here? And also to expand your knowledge, this is what the Green Dining Alliance actually does. We have them commit to some core concepts, which I'll show you in a second. We do an on-site restaurant audit, like I said, face-to-face walkthrough, see their business, how they do things, and then we evaluate. So these core concepts, basically I think these are the backbone of anybody who wants to even be called green. This is something that everybody in the GEA, everybody in the St. Louis area can hopefully be united on. So the first little check mark on the list is what we have to ban. Smoking for air quality purposes, styrofoam and number 6 plastic, which is polystyrene. Here's where I have my little rant. If anybody challenges you on styrofoam, if you see someone with styrofoam, please tell them this is the most egregious environmental offender. There's no reason why America should still be using it. There's no reason why we should be producing it. It never breaks down. And there are some conflicting things. Oh, it breaks down in 500 years. Oh, it breaks down via photons, but it just takes longer. Breaks down means it's going to come down into smaller and smaller particles, but those particles never go away. This is not an organic thing. It can never biodegrade. Maybe in 20,000 years, but not in 500. So whenever you see that styrofoam or that number 6 plastic, you can rest assured that it's going to be here in our environment pretty much forever. And those small particles get in the soil, they get in the water, they get in us, and it's a known carcinogen. So, zero tolerance, and don't be afraid to say that. The second thing that we do is we say everyone has to recycle. We've known for a long time that recycling is important. It's a given. Why are we throwing away renewable resources that can be made into raw materials? It's just silly. We also say that we need to phase in compact fluorescent bulbs. Having energy efficiency is a huge thing, and this is a great way to show if you're speaking to a restaurant owner or a business owner. When you phase those things in, you have a 6-month window where you've already paid off your upfront costs. Basically, you're set. In 6 months, you've already paid it off, and then you're just saving money from there on out. It's a great win-win situation to save money and save energy. And then these next two, sharing your baseline data and setting your waste reduction and diversion goals, this is something, again, that has to do with our alliance and our network. There really is no data right now in St. Louis about the impact of St. Louis restaurants. We don't know how much waste is going out. We don't know what's coming in. We don't know the energy usage. So one thing that the GDA is doing as a network is that we're trying to get that data from everyone, gather it around, and see how much we actually are saving and what the impact is. And then, of course, that last one, education, extremely important. I don't need to tell all of you because you're here tonight. But if you want to move forward as a business owner, you've got to keep up with the industry. And And this is an industry that's always changing. So when we do this audit, basically there are 3 phases of the resources that are coming into a restaurant, right? There's when it comes in, and that's, how much are you buying? Are you buying in bulk? Is there styrofoam involved? Is it local? And then we have what we do with the resources when we're in the restaurant, in the institution itself. Do you have aerators in your sink to save a lot of water right there? Are you thawing your meat by simply running the tap on it forever? Do you have some kind of staff training to make sure that everybody is on the same page? And then we also have that last phase of what's going out. So of course that's the recycling and the composting. So these are the different ways that we go through it. Chemical use is one I want to bring up. Obviously we don't want those toxic chemicals in the places where we have our food. You don't want to be making your staff or your customers sick over time. And this last one, innovation, always important, and that is weighted in terms of our point system. We take those things into account. So basically we want to be tailored. When we put these ratings together and we score those points, 2 stars, you've met those core concepts, right? The basics. You've met the basics, you get 2 stars. But the 3 and 4 star point system comes into play when we look at everything a restaurant is doing. Okay, maybe this small little guy, they just started up last year, they can't afford composting yet. But they are training their staff every week on green stuff, and they have a green team leader. Or maybe this larger guy has all the funding that they could possibly have to do composting, but their neighborhood district doesn't allow it right now. So instead, they're doing all of their food locally. So we keep all of these things in mind, and that's another thing to tell people when they're feeling unsure about whether or not they can be green. There's no one set of rules. There's just a general look at everything that someone is doing. It's holistic. So these are our members now. The green ones are the ones who are certified. They've got their star rating, and the blue ones are in the pipeline. They've had their audit, and now the report is being put together, and the points are being tallied. So looking over this list, I'm sure you've been to some of these places, maybe some of them you've never heard of. I highly recommend that you go. I highly recommend that you check them out. They're taking those extra steps. They're making those moves, they're moving forward, and they're helping people within their community do the same thing. These restaurants that are in the pipeline are not going to stay there forever. We want to move things through pretty quickly, so that's why it's important to check our website to see who's certified and who isn't. It's always changing. It's greendiningalliance.org, you can see on the top, and this is the main page you'll see with our map. And you also have a set of diner tools. So as diners, again, this is something that we can empower ourselves with information. We can go here and say, what kind of shrimp is okay or not okay? What kind of plastic is okay or not okay? These things are always changing, and sometimes it's confusing. And I've definitely been in that situation where I'm at a restaurant, I'm talking to someone, and I try to tell them something, and they say, I heard that wasn't true anymore. I'm not on what's going on, and then my argument is weakened. So as diners, we need to educate ourselves on what's going into our bodies, what's going into our restaurants, so that we can make those choices and be informed. That's how we get involved. So if anyone here does own a restaurant, obviously you can become a member. But I think most of us are diners, so that's where you can look at our other options. We have a lot of grassroots things that we try to do. We try to bring business to these green restaurants by doing monthly dine-outs, by networking for them, doing PR for them, press releases. And we have other things planned in the future. We have educational workshops. And additionally, I think that person to person is the best way to spread this message. I think that you can make a big public service announcement about how we should recycle or we should be green, but really it's going to come from somebody who you know coming up to you and saying, hey, this is doable, I did it, that guy down the street did it, do you want some help, because you can do it too. And so that's really the way that we can move these things forward, especially in a place like St. Louis. It's not a huge city. People know each other. Communities are tight. So this is, I think, and this is why the GDA is moving in our grassroots direction, because I think it's going to be very powerful. So we've got all that network stuff. Like I said, we are a program of St. Louis Earth Day, so you can see our newsletter, keep up to date on what our events are and where they're going to be. And I think that's a wrap. Thank you to our sponsors there, and Q&A if anybody has any questions or concerns. I have answers.
Okay, I came because of styrofoam.
Yeah.
I was dying to hear what you had to say about it. So have you ever approached McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, and all these fast food?
The fast food franchises are really difficult because they are huge corporate conglomerates. They're not local St. Louis places. So we have approached a couple of places that are technically corporate. Unigrill is a cafeteria. They have a location in Fenton that we've audited them, and actually styrofoam is the hang-up. So we're sort of like going along, and then we hit that into gears because they don't want to get rid of their number 6 plastics. So we would love to address the amount of styrofoam being used in fast food, but fast food is a whole other animal. What we're trying to do, I think, is build a sense of peer pressure. You know, we're all in this together, more and more restaurants are doing it, and hopefully the fast food will appear less attractive to most consumers in that amount of time when they have other options to choose from.
What is an alternative to the styrofoam plate? Because we're a large company and we order in meals for all of our working meetings and stuff. And some of the vendors that have gone to like recycled paper plates, you know, I mean, still, if you have any kind of juice or anything on the food, it just goes right down into the table.
Yeah.
So is there an alternative to paper, to styrofoam?
So those really thin paper plates that you might see at a family barbecue, obviously, those are pretty messy. There are a lot of alternatives, and actually I would point you to our website for that, not on the diner side, but the restaurant side, because we have a lot of lists of different suppliers in the area who have green selections. I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's going to be the same price. It's probably going to be a little bit of an increase, but it's not as much of an increase as people often lead you to believe. Like I said, if you talk to your supplier who you typically buy from and you say, listen, like, we don't want to do this anymore, but we want to keep buying from you. Can you give us something in this price range? They might even give you a deal, especially if you're buying large amounts and if you've been a customer for a long time. Additionally, the GDA is currently trying to set up different partnerships with suppliers to see if we can get a GDA member discount, that kind of thing. So if people do need to make that switch, they could potentially be buying the eco-friendly alternative for a better price. So that's something that we're trying to work on.
We're saving styrofoam for when it can be recyclable. But it seems like it's not in this area, but maybe once a year during birthday festivities at Forest Park, I understand maybe there might be someone that would take styrofoam, you don't know.
At Earth Day? Because, I mean, well, the Earth Day Festival is done by St. Louis Earth Day, so it's the same organization, and we are all united on the styrofoam front. Styrofoam, we may be able to recycle it. We may, you know, there's always this innovation in the recycling industry. Single stream recycling is so different from what it used to be. You know, you used to have to sort everything. I'm sure you remember it, to peel off the label, wash it off, no lids. And it's not like that anymore. So potentially, we could be in a situation where styrofoam is recyclable. I still cannot say go for it, just because, like I said, that stuff is going to be around forever. Even if we do recycle it, we should be manufacturing more of it. So buying styrofoam is supporting that industry and supporting that choice. I think if we all try to boycott it and we support other options, the price of styrofoam will go up and the price of the more eco-friendly things will go down.
I saw something about a street team.
Yeah, it's not some kind of official, like, you don't have a t-shirt and a mask or something, but basically that's just what we're calling our grassroots diners, our network of sort of hungry for change consumers who are conscious of what's going on and they want to see these changes happen. So those are the people who are actively encouraging their favorite restaurant to make some changes. They're talking to the owner, you know, and as a server, I have to say, don't talk to your server, it's a waste of time. Because most of those servers are A, way too busy, or B, the owner doesn't necessarily care what they have to say. a lot of people are under the assumption that if enough people say something, and that's true, but it really needs to go to the top. So that's my advice to you. Obviously, it's not always possible, so pass it along to your server, and hopefully that person cares enough to take the risk of annoying their boss and passing it along. But I think that it's you to them, you to the top, that makes the biggest impact.
And how do you join the street team?
You can join the street team by getting in touch. You can join the newsletter. You can see what kind of events we have going on. But again, it's not something formal. We are thinking of starting something like a Facebook page where people can like it and join the group and be a part of it. And I don't know if that sounds attractive to all of you, but it's definitely just something that we need to keep spreading. I would say, like, as I mentioned, the most important thing that you can do as someone who's a diner wanting to be a part of this street team effort is talking to people and taking a stand when you see that kind of environmental offense. And not necessarily in a way that you should make a change, but rather, we can. We can. And it is business related. So.
A couple observations and a couple of questions. St. Louis County banned smoking in restaurants a year ago, so that really shouldn't be an issue. If anybody's going to a restaurant and they're smoking in it, they're breaking St. Louis County.
Well, we're in the city and the county.
I guess the city didn't do that.
We, and this is something that, we developed this rule before it was banned officially, but there are still bars. It's basically like if you serve a certain amount of food at a certain amount of time, then you can still.
You
So-
can be a bar or you can be a restaurant.
But we do accept bars into the GDA, so that's why we have it. If that bar does want to be a part of the Green Dining Alliance, they can't have smoking inside.
The other observation is it was my grandchildren that convinced me that I should recycle. It was my grandchildren that convinced me I had to wear a seatbelt. I mean, anybody else might be. But my point is that if you take your program to the grade schools, and somehow or another, if you can get yourself into the school systems. In high school, we have somebody, a friend that would love to have you come talk. But it's the youth, it's the kids, it's the generation thing. Somehow or another, if you can convince a younger generation that you're in, I think you can do this.
Maybe high school is a little younger than me, but yes.
I understand. Coffee cups, like at Starbucks, those kind of coffee cups, are they recyclable?
Paper coffee cups, and again, this kind of depends on where you are in the country, etc. But if you have a paper product that is, really soiled with food or beverage, it might be compostable on an industrial level. So it's not something that you could compost in your backyard with your vegetable scraps. And chances are the Starbucks has been used with chemicals that have bleached it to be so white or so green. So those cups are generally just disposable, unfortunately.
So you shouldn't put them in the single source recycling bins.
Always check the bottom. The bottom of the cup or container or whatever you have should give you an indication. If there's nothing on it, then that probably means it goes to the landfill. If it has something that says this is recyclable, or maybe it says number 7 PLA, that means compostable. So again, it's good to have, one of our diner tools that we have on the website is called like the EcoCycle Pocket Plastic Book. And it's half a page, like that if you printed it off of your computer, you would have 2 of them. Cut it and fold it, and you can keep it in your wallet or your pocket. And it has a guide to all the different plastics that are out there right now and the appropriate way to deal with them. But yeah, my advice is always check the bottom.
I recently had dinner at Billy G's, which is a new restaurant in Kirkwood.
Okay.
And just last night at Rich and Charlie's here in Town and Country. And they both use the, I won't say it's corridor, but the heavy paper to-go containers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the alternative you're talking about.
There are 3 alternatives. There's the paper, which is definitely less of an environmental impact than styrofoam because it's not using the petroleum, etc. But it is going to a landfill. There is
Why can't it not go into the single source recycling? It's paper.
If it is a wax paper that's really heavily soiled, I don't think, again, if it doesn't say that it's recyclable, it probably isn't, unfortunately.
People that I've talked to tell me that anything that you can tear is recyclable. When it
Like,
comes to paper, you can
Mhm.
tear
right, and the other thing is a water test. Typically, if you soak something in water and it's still pretty stable, that's another good way to tell. But the thing is that there are so many different products out there that I'm not even 100% sure which product you're talking about. So it's something that we all kind of have to, if we really want to recycle it, we got to find out. Usually there's an indication on the container. Sometimes there isn't. And if it's a really thick paper like that you can tear, I mean, that does sound pretty recyclable. The other container options, as you said, there's a compostable option, but again, that's only compostable on the industrial level. And then there are recyclable plastics. We usually encourage restaurants to send people off with recyclable plastics because it's something that won't end up in a landfill and could potentially be reused.
pizza, home delivery of pizza comes in cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
How clean does it have to be to recycle?
You know, I know that they didn't used to be recyclable because of the grease and because of the pizza, but that may have changed now. If you are really uncertain, there's always a lot of really helpful people at recycling companies who can tell you. I mean, unfortunately, I don't know about every single detail because I'm always learning new things too. I just learned the other day that that the lids themselves often end up in the landfill anyway, or something like that. I mean, it's always very complicated and changing. So
It's easy to look for that little symbol on plastic kinds of things,
Mhm.
but if they're paper, you know,
So, like I said, these days most things will have a label, even the paper. And I've seen them at like what we do with another program of Earth Day is recycling on the go. So we go to big events and festivals, and I've worked for recycling on the go, and we almost always are able to check on that paper thing, you know, the white and red checkered paper / cardboard thing. We can usually flip it over and see if it's recyclable or not, so, or compostable.
recently at Principia, we had, during the sports camp, we had food served on paper plates, and we had plastic silverware that wasn't, they said, was recyclable.
It's corn-based.
It's corn-based,
Corn-based.
so it is available.
Well, there is recyclable plastic, petroleum-based. Sometimes you can find number 5.
But the plastics that are proper
Utensils.
are the plastics that you get with a fork and a knife at a restaurant.
The plastics that are a problem are number 6.
Are those number 6?
It depends. Like I said, sometimes there are number 5s these days. You can find utensils, but again, it'll say if it is recyclable, they will definitely have, you know, a little thingy that says number 5 on it, or number 3 or whatever. There are corn-based options now, which are compostable on the industrial level. Unfortunately, a lot of times those do end up in landfills, but at least they're not petroleum-based, so it is definitely a better alternative. A lot of times in terms of restaurants, it's much more expensive for them to do that, and since it does end up in landfills, it's sort of a catch-22. So again, we usually say, get the recyclable plastic, it's affordable, and it's not going to end up in a landfill.
Is there any, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
St. Louis County has a solid waste commission under the St. Louis County Health Department.
Yes, I have spoken with their president-elect, actually,
And who's that?
Paul Taylor.
Well, I don't know who that, I'm the chairman of that commission.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's just getting started.
Wow.
And one of the questions that I was asked by one of the county council members was, when are you going to go after fast food restaurants and make them recycle? And that's the first thing that's going to be on our agenda is what can St. Louis County Health Department, St. Louis County Council do to force or at least encourage recycling in restaurants, specifically fast food restaurants. McDonald's in De Pere does have a recycling bin next to their trash bin. I know people who take their paper products to McDonald's home so they can throw it in the single-source recycling containers at home. So we're going to be looking at it, and I think we'd like to have you come up and talk to us about it.
That'd be fantastic. I mean,
I don't know who you talk to. I mean, this is a commission that,
He's with the St. Louis County Health Department, and he is, I think I misspoke, I think he's the president-elect of the Missouri Milk and Food Coalition of Food Safety.
Activity.
Yeah, but he works in
John
the
Hassas. John Hassas is the guy who runs
Okay.
the recycling. And you talk about St. Louis Jefferson a lot. I don't know if everybody knows who St. Louis County Jefferson Solid Waste District is. This is an organization that gets tipping fees from everything that goes to landfills in St. Louis County, and then gives it out in the form of grants. And you're one of the recipients, apparently, of those grants. I also sat on that commission recently. So recycling, I mean, St. Louis County, 7 or 8 years ago, we passed an ordinance that required haulers to include recycling in their standard package. Now, this didn't require people to recycle. It required them to pay for recycling, even if they didn't use it.
That's what got recycling at my condo place. I couldn't
That's
get
what
it
got
to do it.
recycling everywhere, to tell you the truth in the matter. And that's what also resulted in a whole lot of lawsuits. But anyway, St. Louis County Health Department has the ability, if they can get the county council to pass some, I mean, we can make it happen,
Right,
but you get a tremendous amount of opposition
right.
for business to do it. But we have a member of the county council right now who's adamant wants something to happen about recycling in fast food restaurants.
I'm really happy to hear that, because we don't have the resources to take on something that huge. That has to
Yeah.
come from government. And
Yeah,
so
and it's the grassroots people that will make it happen, because ultimately, a year from now, something will get in front of the county council. And the county council controls all of St. Louis County on health issues. Supersedes municipalities completely on health-related issues. So that's going to be key on down the road somewhere. But you know, how can you give them the incentive to do this? Now, single-source recycling is tremendous. I mean, it's just so easy.
Yeah.
But how do you take paper that has been wrapped around a hamburger? It's been soiled somewhat. But I think that can be, in the process of Washington, I think that can be handled. So there are ways, I mean, you're doing a wonderful job and you're doing it but government can get involved. And, you know, you can do it in kind of sneaky ways.
Yes.
I've got two things. First of all, when my husband toured a recycling sorting center, the tour guide said, if you're in doubt, recycle it. So that's what we're doing at our house. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, and that's great to hear, because a lot of times I hear, if in doubt, throw it out. I think there are still a lot of conflicting, phrases, conflicting information, because the industry is changing so fast and changing all the time. I typically, personally, operate on the if in doubt, recycle it, because they're going to sort it out anyway. So it's either landfill or recycling, then why not take the chance that it could be recycled? So I love that you took a tour. It's really fun to tour those facilities. I know that sounds really nerdy, but you should absolutely do it if you get a chance and you haven't done it already. It's a really great way to actually understand what happens. All of this as nuts and bolts as it seems, it's still kind of intangible until you actually see the place. So that's a really great way to learn. But yeah, I'm not sure about the answer, because like I said, I hear if in doubt, throw it out, but then I also hear otherwise. It's kind of conflicting. My personal choice is to recycle it if I can.
Did you have another one? The second thing is that you talk about industrial composting. Do we have access to that?
We do indeed. One of our funders, St. Louis Composting, is a huge composter who will haul from your home, from your business on the industrial level, and they can take all kinds of food. It's not just vegetable scraps. So they can take meat, dairy, pizza. They can take soiled papers that are compostable. They can take napkins. So that kind of thing is a really, really exciting thing happening in St. Louis and a lot of places around the country, if you have the chance to do it.
But that's for a fee.
Oh yes, but as I said, for on the restaurant stance, and I don't know about the home, but on the restaurant level, it's typically a 10 to 15% increase at the most. Usually it comes out the wash if you're just doing the recycling in the landfill. To add composting, you might be adding something, but again, if you're adopting green practices, it also means that hopefully you're reducing the amount of waste that you're putting out. So potentially, with the help of a network and with the help of someone guiding you along the way, you can reduce the amount of stuff that you're bringing in all the time anyway.
These restaurants that are environmentally friendly, do they have a little sticker on the window or by the door?
Yeah, they do.
That
They
you
have
can
a
identify?
GDA window cling, so you can see that just as if they had a health code rating or something like that. They also have that green certification.
Good, good. Okay, in my job, I work with recycling every day for a whole campus. And believe you me, it's lots of headaches and such.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, because I have to know what our recycler will do, what they take. And our recycling is taken to Rock 10, that used to be Smurfit, I think it was called.
Who's your hauler?
Aspen is our haul.
Aspen. Okay.
Okay, so I have to know. We tell our entire campus, thin it down, put it in, because
That's good.
we are told that on the other end, it will get sorted out. I also have toured recycling, but they're improving them all the time.
Yes.
Some of them have giant chutes of air, that is, things being sorted, they just, whoosh, and they just, take them away. But changing behavior that has been ingrained is extremely hard. I mean, it just is. And so therefore, people have good intentions. So things like pizza boxes, we have been told, and our rule is shake the food out, put it in. And we make money on cardboard. So that's another, it's silly for businesses to be trashing. They can actually make money on cardboard, so they're, and we have to be somewhat astute, because if our hauler ever takes our things to the recycler and it is too contaminated, then we will be charged an additional landfill tipping fee and such that gets, so we have never once been charged an extra tipping fee.
Fantastic.
And you're talking a lot of people recycling. So anyway, so it's really important to know. We do the composting right now, the pre-consumer. We use Blue Skies, and Blue Skies takes everything to St. Louis Composting. They're kind of like a partner business and such.
I'll show the screen again. So we've got both of them are sponsors of ours. So there's St. Louis Composting, and there's Blue Skies. Blue Skies is great because they'll haul everything for you.
Right, and so anyway, but I just have one thing to say about fast food. When he mentioned the pear, I too have noticed that, and I went and thanked the manager for having recycling. It was the first time I'd ever seen it at fast food, and he said, well, we've been doing it for a while, and I just wonder if independent owners may have a little more leeway than those who are just run by the corporate office.
And that's true. And that's why, as a small nonprofit with limited, resources, that's why we focus on independent owners small businesses, independently owned businesses, because those big corporate franchises, it would take so many hours to reach them and to get through that chain of command and to make those changes. And that, again, that's where partnering with government is a huge thing. Yes.
So I just have one more thing, sorry.
It's okay.
Have you ever thought of certifying dining halls like on a college campus?
We have, and in fact, like Unigrill is a cafeteria, and we have a couple of other places, like I think there's a new sort of, is it called the Public Dining House? It's in Central West End, it's like all long tables, and it's cafeteria dining style. But we absolutely are open to certifying, and it sounds like you are a really great candidate.
Oh, you have no idea how much I would love it. I would love it, so.
Well, I'm learning from you. I mean, it's really great to talk with all of you about this.
One of the problems with McDonald's and their chains, they're national chains, and they're required to buy their material from a particular supplier.
Even if
So
they're an independent owner.
Even if you're an independent owner, if you have a
Consistency.
McDonald's franchise, you buy your hamburgers and your plates and your forks and your knives, you buy everything from McDonald's. Now, they can do the recycling on their own because McDonald's doesn't care. But as a corporate supplier, you sign an agreement and you can't buy your.
So they can't undo the styrofoam policy. They can't get compostable burger wrappers unless it comes from the corporate level.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it sounds like you have to approach someone like St. Louis Bread Company, but I think that they would be a good candidate.
We have approached them,
Oh.
and we were given a sort of like, you know, again, it's I think that they are interested, and they definitely are trying to brand themselves that way about how they have antibiotic-free chicken, and now their new catchphrase is "live consciously." So, I mean, I think that they like that. Yeah. If you listen to Pandora, you have to hear about it all the time. But they are a very big corporate chain. They're sort of regional, so maybe, and they are St. Louis based. But right now, I think that if we can gain a little more momentum, like from the GEA standpoint, if we can gain more momentum in the number of members that we have a little more of when we approach something like that.
The owner of Panera was on national news tonight.
Oh, really?
And
How
because the government had declined food stamps, and he's been living on $4.50 a day for food, and he's the owner of Panera, with St. Louis Bread Company. They've established 5 restaurants, one in St. Louis, one in Portland, Oregon, one in Chicago, one in Boston.
The one in Clayton?
So,
The pay what you can.
but yes, and also if you can't pay, you can help clean. But so there's an
fantastic.
open thought there. So I would respect that company when you bring it up in the public. Don't imply that they're totally corporate, because there seems to be a humanitarian sense of
Yes.
service there that you might be able to tap in, especially since it was on national news tonight.
And they do donate their leftover bread. Food donation is something that we definitely push and that we try to connect.
The other thing is, part of my family lives in San Francisco. It's a religion out there. What you eat in restaurants that buy locally. The whole green movement is very, very active. But it's come through the young people. As Dick was saying, it's the younger generation becoming more conscious and demanding. And so I think it will come. It just, what you're doing is great because you're educating.
Yes.
And the other thing is food consumption. Is, you know, eating properly. When you talk about McDonald's and all that, that's like.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is how could we certify McDonald's with the kind of meat that they're serving? You know, it's a very difficult issue because it is so complicated. But we do. I didn't mean to dismiss Panera in that way. I know that they do have a lot of good practices.
Well, I think they would have an ear for what you're doing.
And they didn't completely dismiss us. You know, they said, yeah, this is great, but, you know, you're going to have to get up the chain and we don't have time for this right now. So I think, again, as the GEA grows a little bit bigger and as we have a larger following, you know, St. Louis is, I lived in Seattle for a year, so I know that the San Francisco comment of how it's definitely, it's in the mindset. And those assumptions are no longer apparent in the general public.
These are top quality restaurants in San Francisco. You know, that announce that everything we buy locally and we're whole green movement.
And that's starting to change here. If you go to Bailey's Range or you know whatever, he's got a lot of local stuff. Local Harvest has really taken a good stance, and those are some of our pending members as well.
Snucks are now listing, but they're the local produce.
They are. They got
So there's a
heirloom
movement
tomatoes.
that's going on.
Yes, definitely, definitely. It's exciting. I'm excited. I think St. Louis is experiencing a bit of a revolution right now. And it's nice to come out of the county and see that that's also a part of it too, that we're all kind of moving this way together. So,
As diners, we can also reduce our use of plastic. This is my straw.
yes, thank you.
This
for
works
that.
at fast food or any place.
And what's it made out of?
Metal. I don't take it through the metal detectors.
How do you clean it?
A pipe cleaner.
Little bottle brush.
Yeah,
Oh,
pipe
it's so
cleaner.
easy.
Yeah.
They're
There are also
great
bamboo
chopsticks.
options. You can get bamboo, very, very light, forks, knives, spoon, and whatever bamboo thing that you can keep it with you. It's about the size of your sunglasses case, but it's very efficient. You can also get, my fiance has this really great stacked metal to-go thing that has snaps on the side. So if you're at a restaurant and you're like, oh, do you want that to go? You're like, it's fine, I've got it, and you can just put it in there yourself. So even if a place does have good practices, absolutely, as diners, you should do everything you can to reduce the amount of waste that's going into our waste stream by doing something like that.
In grocery stores, they offer a paper bag of plastic.
Mhm.
Should we not be taking the plastic?
I don't think you should take plastic.
What you should take is.
Yeah, you take one of those.
Yeah, I think you should take a reusable bag if possible. If you forgot your reusable bag, that happens to me all the time. I need to do it. I have a huge stack of them, and I'm running out of the house, and then I forget, and I'm there.
Keep them in your
So
car.
what-
I know, but I don't have a car. I ride a bike, so again, it happens. So even in those cases, I would recommend that number 5 thin plastic bag is typically not. I think that's like one of the number one things that ends up in rivers. Even sometimes when we throw those things away, they're not even making it to the landfill. They're getting in the water, they're going to the ocean, and they're becoming a part of the plastic gyre. So,
But you should wash the reusable bags because they have found that that's a real issue. People
Yeah.
keep throwing,
Produce
food and meat and such, and you need to at least wash them, let them air dry, and reuse them.
it's a good thing to keep in mind. Food safety.
I don't know how accurate this is, but as far as accurate, I always kind of thought that we can grow more trees, but we're not going to get any more dinosaurs to can and turn it into oil.
Yes,
Plastic.
and it's a finite resource. That's what you have to think about anytime you're using petroleum products. It's a finite resource, and it's not organic. It's not going to break down, like I said. Even if we're recycling it, it's here on our planet for thousands and thousands of years, conceivably as long as human beings are around. Every bit of plastic that we have created and manufactured is with us. And that's really, if you start to conceptualize it on a global level, it's a pretty scary thought, especially since when plastic does break down, it gets into those tiny carcinogenic particles that we have found in plenty of cancer lumps. So, if you can avoid plastic, do it. That's pretty much my motto for that one.
Including plastic water bottles.
Don't use plastic water bottles. Sorry, not the most professional response. Yes, I would strongly recommend that you do not use plastic water bottles. Please get a reusable water bottle. There's no reason not to. You can get an attractive one that fits your identity, and you can use that. Why buy your water anyway when you can get perfectly good water out of the tap? I've lived in India, and trust me, that is a really, really nice luxury that we should all be taking advantage of.
When you were thinking of purchasing water bottles, were you thinking of like a reusable?
No, I'm thinking about the purchased
Oh,
ones.
okay.
Plastic,
Everybody
I mean-
walks around with water bottles.
Yes, so you drink it and throw it away.
Thousands of them.
Yeah,
I have a daughter who lives in Boulder, Colorado.
very green place.
Yeah, and the haulers there, you can separate landfill stuff from composting and recycling. So they actually have 3 different things that are picked up by the hauler.
And that happens in St. Louis, I don't know your name, but as you were saying, you can have the industrial level composting, the recycling, and the
This is the
landfill.
regular hauler. You don't have to have a special hauler to get composting. It's the
Because
same.
I don't think anyone does that in St. Louis.
No, it's
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, it's interesting.
Again,
to try
that's the
and-
government, the infrastructural level. And that's why we all have to keep, pressuring with our consumer dollar. It's estimated that that's more powerful than our vote these days, is how we spend our dollars. So, we're basically voting each time we make a decision as a consumer. So, pressuring those governments to make those changes, it's the way it's going to happen.
The statistics in St. Louis County on recycling versus trash over the past 10 years is just astronomical. I mean, since they required, basically, the tonnage has gone way down
Yeah.
on landfills. And as a result, revenue has gone down to the district. But, if you make it happen or provide an incentive, it will happen.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about waste diversion is that you get a very tangible sort of reward. You get that tonnage that you can see. So many metric tons have been diverted from a landfill, and that's a really great feeling. So.
I was curious about your measurement for purchasing local. How do you measure that? And you indicated that you really, it's part of your overall process, right? Can you speak to
So
that?
we give points for different things that we see that a business is doing, and those points are all weighted differently. Buying local has a pretty strong weight to it in terms of the number of points that you get because it is an expense. Typically, you have to purchase more and you have to charge a little more on your menu. So that's one of those things that it's helping the local economy. It's healthier for your diners. It's a really, really great thing to do. So we reward that with more points than just recycling. That's a basic thing that everybody should be doing.
Well, the thing I was trying to understand is there are a lot of products that just aren't available locally at all. And so depending on the theme or the type of restaurant or food preparation place it would be, it seems like some of those would be at a great disadvantage versus others, and yet it's because they're catering to certain taste preferences for a clientele where the products that they utilize are not available locally. And so I wondered how you treated that. So for example, seafood restaurant.
Right.
There's not a lot of
So-
seafood right here in Missouri.
That's true, but there are more sustainable seafood options versus very egregious seafood options. So if you are a seafood restaurant, you can very easily take a look at the Monterey Bay Seafood Watch, and we have that on the diner resources as well if you'd like to take a look if you're a seafood eater. And basically that'll give you a breakdown of, if you want to buy shrimp, what species of shrimp are more sustainable than others, and they give you a really nice breakdown. So in that situation, again, like I said, we want to tailor it to each individual business, and we do that weighting based on what they're doing. If they, maybe a Mexican restaurant that's got a lot of avocados and mangoes and things like this, things that we cannot grow here, well, at the end of the day, that is an unsustainable choice. It does have to be shipped far to get to us. However, I love avocados. I think a lot of people do. And Mexican restaurants are a very vibrant part of our culture, particularly where I'm from, South City, Cherokee Street. We've got a huge Latino population. We don't want to punish people for their culinary tradition. So that's where you can have more points in other ways. Maybe you're not buying locally, but you're being really innovative by using vegetable grease to power your machinery. Maybe you've got energy efficient dishwashers. Maybe everything that you have is compostable and you have industrial composting there, and you have educational signage in your restaurant to indicate the customers about how to get rid of their waste. So there are ways for a restaurant who's not buying locally to be 4 stars versus a place that is buying locally to only get 2 or 3. So we definitely want to be holistic and flexible. We don't want to have a really rigid system where it's like, if you don't do these things, it's not going to happen. Except for those core concepts, which, as I said, those are the basics. But
Last question in this area. Do you have to buy from a grower then in order to buy locally?
not necessarily. Prairie Farms is an example. We count that as a local source because it is sourced regionally and it is a farmer's collective. But you're not buying locally per se. You're not buying directly from the dairy farmer. You're buying it from probably Restaurant Depot because they have those huge amounts. If you do have a relationship with a farm, that's great, and that's something that we take into account when we do our weighted point system. But there are other places like, there's an organization called Farm to Family in the city that is sort of like a depot for the growers in the area. And so as a restaurant, you can talk to Farm to Family and say, I need eggs, sour cream, and broccoli. and they can say, okay, great, you know, these are our, here's the farmers, and you can pick it up from us. So there are other options. You don't have to buy directly, like farmer to restaurant.
And are you responsible, or is the individual restaurant responsible for really determining whether a source that is not a grower is providing product that's produced locally or from a distant point?
Well, at the end of the day, it's up to the restaurant. You know what they want to buy; it's their choice, and we will score that accordingly. So if someone's like, no, you know, I have this relationship with this particular supplier, I don't want to leave it behind, but it's a very unsustainable choice, well, you know, then that's going to detract from the point system, or maybe they're not going to get any additional points for it. So it's something that we kind of carefully take into account.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think you had a question too, just before we extend, because she's been waiting a really long time.
Kind of general, I'm going to my favorite restaurant tomorrow, so,
Which is,
Napoli's and Clinton.
oh yes.
So what
They're
should
definitely
I,
on our list. We want them.
should I give them the card? Is that you?
That is the recycling on the go card. I have business cards that I am happy to hand out to all of you for the GDA, and yeah, that would be great.
Should I push like just the styrofoam first, or, because I have a feeling they're gonna be reluctant
I think
about
so
joining your group.
So here's where we can end this, is a bit of sort of diner, a way to negotiate the situation, a little bit of training, because I've approached so many restaurant owners in my lifetime and it's gone in many different directions. I think the best way to approach them is to say, I come to your establishment all the time, I love it, this is my favorite place. Have you heard about the Green Dining Alliance? No. He said, okay, well, da-da-da. You know, they are a certifier of green restaurants, and basically they're trying to create a network of green restaurants. And then this is the kicker. You say, I love this place, and I really want to see it become green, and I would be much more likely to bring friends and family and suggest this place if I knew that it was a more sustainable option. I think that that's kind of where it comes in. They know that they have a customer base that's going to continue to grow if they move forward with public opinion. So that would be my advice, and obviously you choose your own words. Maybe you know the owner, that's even better. But just making it a conversation, you know, instead of just, oh, I hate styrofoam. You know, obviously we all hate styrofoam. I hate it just as much as anybody, but trying to approach them on a collaborative and cooperative level, and showing the Green Dining Alliance as a resource, I think is the best way to go. Okay? I know we're over the time, so.
I'm sure Olivia would be happy to hang around if there are
Yes,
more
I'm
questions.
still here.
But